Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Real Freedom Podcast, where we talk about building time and financial freedom through different opportunities in real estate. And so we are going to do that again here today. I'm excited to share our guest, Ed Parcaut. Ed's an experienced and respected professional in the mortgage industry with over 25 years of experience and founder and CEO of Lending for Living, has a passion for helping clients navigate the complex process of purchasing a home. And you have a best-selling book, Financial Freedom, Building Personal Wealth Through Homeownership, host of the iHeartRadio talk show, Real Estate Jerky and Helping The Brave. Also had a 9-part docuseries, Hacking Real Estate, produced by Revealed Films. Unique perspective as a proud veteran of the United States Navy. Thank you so much for your service, Ed. Ed Parcaut, let's go ahead and get right into it. Welcome.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Why don't you just share a little bit about your background, about being obviously in the mortgage industry, all the other background leading you up to where you're at today?
Well, it depends how far back you want to go. Bronco fan, as we talked in the beginning, because I was
born and raised a Bronco fan. Yep.
And Manning wasn't bad for the couple years he was there, but we're still looking. So, we still have a good quarterback. But I was raised where we owned one piece of property with a trailer on it. So really it's not real property, right? When we were in Colorado. And then when we moved to California, we couldn't own anything because it was so expensive at the time, which is so funny because that was, a long time ago, and it was too expensive for people to own property at that time. You fast forward to today, and that's the same thing you hear constantly from people who come from other states. How do you guys afford this? This is just so expensive. We can't afford the payment. And again, it has to do with jobs and everything else you can get here and work and other stuff. And so my whole life wasn't going in the mortgage industry. I decided to join the Navy to get out of Northern California because I wanted to see the world. And I got to see San Diego, actually Oceanside, where Camp Pendleton was, because I was stationed there. Mm-hmm. And when I was after playing around for about a year and a half, I ended up going to physical therapy school and came back to Camp Pendleton. And I go, okay, if I'm stuck here for another 2 plus 3 years, I better start school. So I ended up going to school, got my bachelor's, started my master's, and then finished my master's when I got out. And this is what I tell everybody. So that's why I have the podcast, Helping the Brave. Utilize the service for what it's for, to better your life for the future. Don't always focus you're going to stay there for 20 years, because most people don't. Mm-hmm. So when I got out, I was getting in the real estate industry, but it was at the time that was really bad. It was another issue where there was a year and a half that the market was down because of SNL and some other different things that were going on at that time. And that's not Saturday Night Live. That was a savings and loan fiasco. Even though Saturday Night Live was good during that period of time. I probably, besides the 90s, that was probably the last time I liked it. But so when I was getting in the real estate industry, then found out it wasn't working. I ended up falling in the computer industry, which some of my background, even though I was in the medical field, was in that. After a few years, wasn't for me. And my neighbor had a mortgage company, and I go, let's check it out. So I went to work for him, started their direct mail, and it just blew up. And I loved the numbers. I loved everything about it. I was like, this is for me. I want to help people. So I get in the mortgage industry, love numbers, but for 18 years, I only did refinances, and that's all I ever did. And we created one of the largest call centers before call centers was a thing in San Diego, and we did very well. And then I moved back up to Northern California in about 2002 to be closer to my daughter with special needs. Ended up creating another mortgage company up here, and that's the Lending for Living, and just been growing it and getting beat up by different things that we have no control over in our industry. Because as you know, in the last 6 months, rates went up 4% because of inflation and other stuff that was going on. And I can talk for 2 hours about why we're in that situation. We shouldn't be, but that's my background. So I love helping people get into homes. There's nothing like helping that first person find their first home, and it changes the where their family moves from that point on. The whole family changes, the dynamics of how, we can own a home. And the kids think they can own a home. Their kids think they can own a home, even though it might get tougher and tougher. There's ways to do it. and look to your family to help you with those things.
So a lot of people in the audience, either sell real estate, and even there's the stat out there about, there's a lot of realtors out there that don't even own their own home, and this is what they're selling. But talk for people that maybe I'm a millennial and I'm like, I don't know if I really need to own my own home, or, I'm renting right now and don't really know what to do, but it's something I want to do for the future. Talk about that. What's the benefits here?
Well, I mean, the difference between a renter and a homeowner is about $250,000 of equity on over time, right? The renter max will ever have like $8,000, where a homeowner, especially right now, nationwide, most people have at least 180 to 200,000 in equity. In our state of California, we're at least 300 to 400,000 because of what had happened in the last few years. The reason you want to own home, and this is why I started my radio show called Real Estate Jerky. It was an old blog I'd created back in 2010. I wanted a unique name that people would remember. And that was like, Real Estate Jerky gives you something to chew on, right? It's an old phrase from a long time ago. And people remember it. And so I started it because there were so many young people, I guess you call them millennials these days, right? Because I started in 2018, but I just got tired of hearing people going, I don't want to own a home because I saw my parents lose their home and it affected our family. Well, that was a unique situation. And in 2008, the financial crisis that came out of that was because of the loan programs that was created. And it wasn't so much the loan programs, but if you watch The Big Short, that movie, it talks about the rating agencies of the bonds and how they rated them AAA, and they should have been D's or E's or F's. And if they were, they would have been priced so horribly, nobody would have taken those loans. That's where the problem is. All the companies that went under from it were fined from it. They shouldn't have been fined. They should have just went after those bond rating agencies. And those are the people who should have went to jail. Yeah. Because then they would repackage those whole things up into another package and send it and sell it as a block of good loans again, rated high, and it shouldn't have been.
Yeah. Well, and just my experience, I first bought in 2006 and my wife and I just recently married. She was still getting her master's degree, so she was just a nanny full time. I worked for a nonprofit, and I reached out to my lender, and we had an apartment for a couple of months, and I wanted to plan ahead, and so I said, hey, what do I need to do to get a house? And so he ran the numbers and said, here's what you do. I think we did 3% down. And then we had a first mortgage and a second mortgage. And he's like, hey, do you plan on living here for more than 5 years? And I said, nope, because it's a townhouse. So we did a adjustable rate mortgage. And I didn't know any better, right? And why would we have thought that there would be any reason to not think differently? And over the next couple of years, I watched as, we were fortunate when that 5-year ARM came due, that my wife's parents stepped in and helped us refinance that through a home equity line of credit that they had. Otherwise, I think our payment would have jumped $150, $250. So we were able to do that. And then we turned that into a rental property. So that's how we became landlords, was through that process. But I watched all my neighbors short sale and foreclose, and we would have just continued to stay there and make the payments, but we ended up using that as an opportunity to turn it into a rental. But yeah, there's a lot of people that were gone. We had friends and family members that foreclosed on properties because of that.
Right. But it was a huge opportunity for a lot of other people, right, who didn't own. And a lot of people, if you did it right, there was ways to purchase another home in the down part and get rid of that home through the process. There's short sales and so many other things you could do, because I helped many people through that financial situation. I ended up becoming a life coach because I sat down with so many people crying in front of me, and I had to explain to them, this is, and because my wife's like, she wanted to go to this life coaching thing. I'm like, I go, okay, I'll go. Worst thing it could happen is it'll help me. Then like 2 months later, I'm sitting in front of people crying, and I'm explaining to them, this is just a blip. So I'm doing the whole coaching stuff and how they're talking, how you utilize these words and everything else. I'm like, man, I'm glad I went to this course. But it helps so many people. Yes, a lot of people lost homes, but it helped a lot of people buy a house during that period of time. And that house has so much equity to this day. But I still ran into people who their kids are like, don't want to buy, don't want to go through that. And That is the worst thing. Most people build their wealth through real estate. I think 90% of all, at the time the phrase that came out was millionaires own real estate. That's how they made it, was through real estate. And, most people don't have a 401k, 403b IRA, but you can buy a home and it will build equity over time. And then you can use that equity to buy other homes or buy other things. I talk in my book about how we used it. We bought a cabin, and then we use that to buy land to build on. And then we use that, there's so much you can do out of that if you do it right over time. You're never going to catch the market perfect, but if you do it right over time, you will not lose. And the biggest thing in the last 6 months, everybody thought we were going to have a bubble. And I was like, there's no bubble. The biggest, because we have no inventory. And if you know anything about inventory, us in California, we're doing 35% of our normal existing home sales.
Mm-hmm.
We normally do 85% is the average number. We're only at 35% of those houses that are coming on the market. Our inventory is so low. And I know a lot of other states are the same way. How is it in your guys' area?
It's low. I mean, we bought 4 years ago and we're sitting on a 3% mortgage. And for those people, they don't want to, they want to sit on that. And so I always explain to people, you've always got the people in the market that have to move for various reasons, either upsize, downsize, job changes, relocations and all that. But then you've got that block of people that could move or don't have to move. I think that's where we fell when we moved into this house. It's like, it's a little bit smaller for our tastes. We had a third kid that was just born. And so it's like, we could use a little bit bigger house. We could use a little bit different neighborhood. And so all of those people are the people that get shrunk in a case like this as the interest rates go up. It's the people that, could choose to move, but they just decide to stay. But yeah, we see that here, not as much of a shortage as other places in the Midwest. Things kind of just take a while to get here, but yeah, it's certainly a shortage compared to, where we were at in the past.
For 2020 and 2021, us mortgage people, there was $12 trillion of mortgage debt, and we refinanced 10 trillion of it into low interest rates. And now you just put golden handcuffs on people to where if the only changes that are happening is if they have to move because of job or something, if someone passes away, or if there's a divorce and they got by each other. Those are the only things that are really changing. Everybody else isn't moving. So and we normally do 450,000 transactions a year in the state of California. Last year we were at 260,000. And then right now with the numbers, we're doing 420 closings in the whole state a day. We're going to be lucky to break 121 to 130,000 for the year. That's how bad it is. And we're not building homes like we should be building. We normally in our area, we build 1,000 homes a year when we're barely building 100. And so that's, and I don't want to get into how short we are on new homes, but they supposedly need to build 17 million homes over a decade to get caught up. And we're not even anywhere close to that. We're at like 1.4, 1.3, depending on what month it is, of actual homes. That includes single family and multifamily homes being built. But we are still creating family units at 1.9 million a year. You see that we keep slapping another 500,000 on that deficit every year. And I look at this, I see house prices for the next 20 years going up because we won't catch up. And then when that happens, all the kids that were born during the pandemic that are as much as the baby boomer generation coming to play to buy houses, we're in a situation where something's got to change. We got to build a lot of houses to get caught up, and we need to, because the only way to get affordable housing is to build houses more cheaper, meaning that the permits, the other stuff like that needs to be so much cheaper for the builders so that they can build. And I'm not talking builders who are building to rent, because 1 in 4 tracts now are being built just to rent. And that's the other issue that's taking problems with building homes, is you're taking builders that are building these huge complexes to rent instead of building them to be sold.
Yeah. And I know here with new construction homes and the new building codes and all that needs to be in place, you're looking at, 25% more for a new home than you would to just go buy something. Why buy new and slightly used will do? That's the way it is. Like if I could go choose to build a new home, or I could just buy one that was recently built within the last 5 years, and it's a whole lot cheaper. And so that's another issue is, yeah, that new construction cost is high.
Right. Because everybody's like, well, we had this program in California. It was called Shared Equity. It was for all, or for American Dream for all, which ended up being American Dream for some. It was $300 million they were giving you for 20% down to help buy homes. The problem is, it's not. People don't need that money to buy homes. All that did was increase the offers to 20 offers on every house, versus 5 offers to 10 offers on every house right now. We have multiple offers over asking again in California. I don't know if it's that way with you, but we're back there already just because of the inventory issue. What they need to do is take that same amount of money and go, builder, we know it costs you $125,000 to do all this stupid stuff. Here's your money. Now build the house for $300,000 to $400,000. And sell it for, the $450. That is the average price of what most people can afford. Because right now we have, during the pandemic, you could buy a $700,000 house for a $3,000 a month payment. And right now, $400,000 house is a $3,000 a month payment. And I'm not trying to be negative, because I'm not. You can always, right now is the opportunity to get into a home and then refinance that loan when rates start coming back down, because they will start coming back down. Inflation will come back down. We will hit a recession, and we're going to see that. Eventually government will stop spending, and that's our problem right now. It's like having a family on a budget, but only the mom's on the budget and the dad's out spending, or I don't care, pick it, whoever, you think is the one that's spending. And that's where we are right now. The Fed is the person on the budget, and our government is the one not on the budget. They just think by spending and spending, you can't spend your way out of this. It needs to stop. We need to tighten the money.
Yeah. And the key is, I see a lot of lenders over the last year, as rates had spiked up, talk about marry the home, date the rate. That's the thing that everybody was advertising. Well, and that's true. And yet at the same time, that doesn't mean make a bad financial decision, because rates will go down sometime. Like, you still got to be smart, and you still have to be conservative. Can I afford this home for the price that I'm paying? And happy day down the road, if I can refinance, which I will be able to at some point, but you can't plan on, hey, I'll just, pay this for a year and then it's going to go down, because we don't necessarily know how low it's going to go or when that's going to happen. You still got to make a smart decision.
Right. I'm not saying not to make a start, but the issue is rates are starting in September. You're going to see a huge move, because we're going to see the change in inflation. What the Fed does has nothing to do with mortgage rates. I think a lot of people are getting confused about that. The Fed does overnight rates to banks. They do stuff like the prime rate, which has to do with HELOCs, and you have credit cards. Those kind of rates are what the Fed controls. Mortgage-backed securities is what runs the actual interest rates and how they are bought and who's buying them. Right now, our rates are up because the Fed, instead of buying our mortgage-backed securities and all the stuff that they were buying, they're dealing with all the banks that went under and buying all their treasury bills. And that's so, instead of buying where they normally would, that's why rates are up a little bit more than we know. We're right now close to 7 again. We're back to where we were in March. And and people are like, what? And that's why I'm saying, if you can afford the payment, you can afford the house, get the house, because in 5 years from now, you're going to wish you had the house at this price that we are right now. And that's what I heard it from Dave Ramsey after I was saying it for a while. I'm not saying he heard it from me. I'm just saying I was saying it, and then Dave Ramsey said it. If Dave Ramsey, who's the most conservative person out there when it comes to doing anything on a house, says buy now is the time to buy.
Yeah. So what advice do you have for people that they're sitting in that spot where maybe they're renting right now? They know that they want to get that house. How do you talk them into doing that? And then 2, talk about kind of what that future is to help them build wealth.
Well, first I would tell them, go get my book. Right. And we don't make a ton of money off of books. If you ever write a book, you don't get wealthy off the books. People who get wealthy off the books are the ones who do series of books and they turn them into a movie and all that kind of stuff. Right. But these
Harry Potter,
books, that kind of stuff. But these books, we do it because the same reason I did the radio show is there's only one of me to talk to my clients. Right. I can only talk to so many clients. I try to help 30 to 40 families a month. But to get to more clients, I wrote the book, and how I wrote the book is how I qualify somebody. So I have you look at your credit first. And I go through the scenarios on how to help fix your credit issues. It's like a GPA. Once you make a ding to it, it's really difficult to get your GPA up, but you can, right? It just takes it's a lot harder. So first thing I do with people is sit down and see where they were with their credit. Then I look at where they are with their income. And then, because if you, once you have your credit in place, then income, right? If your income's not there, we've never been in a situation where there's 9 million jobs out there, supposedly. And the reason I say supposedly is because I think there's less than that. I think there's only about 4.5 to 5 million if we're lucky. A lot of those jobs that are out there, people aren't going to hire them back. They're available, but they don't really need them right now. Right. And so when you look at, I look at a lot of people's income, I say, well, if you make $2 more an hour, you can afford this home. If you go to and look for another job, normally you get a 15% increase in salary. If you stay at your current job, you might get the 7% increase. And I always tell people, try to better your life. Go become a nurse, do something that makes, there's so many things you can do to get to that point of home ownership, because you want to do it. Once you get in, you're in the game. And then as house values go up, it doesn't matter because yours is going up the same as everybody else's. A lot of people I deal with, they don't want to be a landlord. They just want to own their own home. And that's what they want. And my son, who's 22, just closed on his house 2 weeks ago, and they just got moved down there from Alaska, and they're still waiting for their furniture. It hasn't showed up yet, but they're so happy they own a home first time. And that is the best feeling you ever have, is getting into your home the first time. My favorite movie is It's a Wonderful Life. And I like being George Bailey, helping people get into homes.
And the key, is really that home ownership is a launching pad for future potential. And one of the things we talk with helping people invest is home equity line of credit could be an opportunity for you to be able to take advantage of that equity that you've built to go invest in something. Now, that being said, you still have an interest rate tied to that. So you still got to make sure that the numbers make sense and you want to do something smart. But that's where home ownership can unlock different opportunities for you, because you have something of value that is collateral that somebody is willing to lend on in the future as you continue to get more and more equity. And so really that home ownership is a launching pad for the future, like you had mentioned.
Right. And the only issue about the equity lines right now, prime rate's 8.25. You had your margin on that. You get a discount the first year, but basically you're looking at 10 to 11%, which everybody's like, what? So when I got in this business, I was taking people from 13 to 9 and they love me. And then now you give somebody a 3%, a year ago, they were like, you're taking advantage of me. So these rates are not, historically rates are 5 to 6% on average, if you look back, but we will be lower. But again, if you're going to buy your first house, if you don't have kids, if it's just you or you and your spouse, go buy a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex. You can do that FHA with 3.5% down, right? Mm-hmm. I helped some friends of mine buy a duplex in San Clemente, and it was the highest FHA loan I've ever done in my life. It was $850,000. It was the FHA loan. They ended up getting in there for 12% down. If you buy normal duplexes and triplexes, it's as an investment, that's 20 to 25% down at least. So if you can do it your first house, and that would be your first thing into investments. And then when you decide, hey, let's go have our kids, let's go buy our single family home. And then for our kids, and because typically for me, I never thought single family homes were supposed to be for renting, for investment purposes. They were supposed to be lived in. I always like the units for investing, because if you lose one person, it doesn't really affect you as much as if you lose one person in a single family home.
And I've interviewed quite a few people too on the podcast that started their investing journey by renting out a bedroom of their single family home that they have. Because I think sometimes too, they feel like, oh, I've already bought my first house. Now I can't go do the duplex thing or, something like
hard.
that.
It's too hard.
And so look at your current circumstance and say, hey, is it something where I could rent out a room or two? I give an example. One of my friends right out of college was able to purchase a home, and he rented out 3 or 4 bedrooms to all of my, high school, college buddies. And he did that for a few years. And so being able to have your mortgage paid off, something like that, because, a lot of people right out of college or whatever, they're not going to buy their own home. And so if you're smart enough or able enough to be able to buy that home, have your buddies rent from you, that's a great way to build income. Or like I've seen people do a Airbnb or a short-term rental with, a rent by the bedroom. And one of the guys on my team just went down to Texas, and that's exactly what they did. They rented an Airbnb, a room out of somebody's house. And so that's another way that you could, buy that home, turn it into some income if you're not doing a duplex or triplex, something like that. So there's a lot of great opportunities out there.
Right. I like, if your first deal, before you buy that house you're going to live in forever, or that second or that first home you're not going to live in forever, try to buy duplex, try to buy a triplex or a fourplex, because 1 to 4 units is the same. Basically you can buy that FHA. The issue you run into is a lot of people I know will help kids buy a house when they go to college and do the same thing what you just said, get all these people to rent out all these rooms because they were going to do it anyway. It's cheaper for them. It's just harder now than it has been in the past because of where we are with rates and inventory. So eventually when we see rates back to 4.5 to 5, which they will get there. It'll take time. We'll see more people giving up their 3% interest rates, because it's not that big of a deal to go up, $200, $300 on a payment. It's a lot to go up $700 or $1,000 a month for that extra room for that baby, or the extra, that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And that's what we'll see. People will give those things, because right now there's such golden handcuffs. People want to do so many things. I hear it all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, the equity line is going to cost you, $100,000. It's going to cost you $1,000 a month at the current interest rates. It might make more sense to get a 5% or a 6%, because we were not always at the 7. We were lower from March till just recently. We were much lower than that. It changes on a daily basis. And I don't think people realize how much interest rates can change by hour, by minute, by whatever. And people just don't get it. And you have to really understand that. And I kind of do that in my book. I explain all this stuff in there because I want you to be able to sit down with whoever your lender is, or your mortgage broker, whoever you're going through, and understand the process so much easier. Understand contracts, understand what's a loan estimate, what's a CD, what's a closing disclosure, all those things that come into play that you have no idea. And I find that in the past, when I've taken over a transaction from somebody, I said, so they explain this to you, right? They never explain closing costs. They never explain prepaids and those kind of things. I'm not saying always, but just we get in our process. I've been selling the same way for the last 20 years. I start from one point, and how I start my presentation all the way to the end, and I don't change. I had a business partner when we were in San Diego at my mortgage company, and we shared the same office so that when our employees came in, they could tell us one time, trying to make it more efficient. And he's like, dude, as soon as you pick up that phone, you say the same thing from the beginning all the way through the whole transaction. I go, because you have to. That's the only way to make sure you cover everything for the people.
And for first-time homebuyers, there's so much to learn, so much to understand, that you want to be a good educator as well. It's not just make the sale, but you've got to be a good educator to help them understand what they're getting into. Because like I said, not that my lender did anything wrong necessarily when we purchased, but I didn't know what I was getting into. I was like, well, everybody else is buying a home, so I'm going to do that too. And then, we'll just do that adjustable rate mortgage. And what I didn't know was a ticking time bomb. And then and I didn't expect the prices to go down so much like they did. And so we were fortunate to make it out without foreclosing, but people just don't understand what's at stake.
Yeah. It's just, you just don't know what you don't know, because, and the thing is, even if you bought, years ago, things have changed since then, right? And that's why I tell, even though my book is for, most people think it's for first-time home buyer. It's not. It's for any time, because credits change. How we look at incomes change. How we look at assets, and the loan estimates and the CDs only been around for a few years. Most people who bought in 2008, 2010, it was good faith estimates. 3-page things. They weren't the same as they are now. The way it's now is it makes it more protection for the buyer going forward on the loan, right? And when you sign CDs, and right now you can never say, I never saw that. You sign the loan estimate and the CD so many times, and the documents so many times now electronically, And that's came from the 2006 where people said, I didn't know it was an adjustable. I didn't know that this margin was on here. I didn't know this. You can't say that now because you sign the stuff so many times that you have to see it. You know, that's what I'm saying. That's how it's totally the only better now for disclosing because of how we do it through the electronically so many times to you.
Anything else that you want to share that's really important from your book or other concepts here before we wrap up?
I just think it's buying real estate is the best thing you can do. I mean, it's how you can build personal wealth through home, you know, and the easiest way. I came up with a phrase years ago, building personal wealth through home ownership, because it just came out when I was talking to somebody and like, you need to use that tagline. So I trademarked it. Thank God. Then I put it on my book, which was the first time that the book company has ever had a trademark title. Because most people, you know, if you look on certain titles, there's so many books with occasionally with the same title, and I didn't want them. But for me, easiest way to find me at Parcaut.com. You can find my book at getedsbook.com or go to Amazon and type in Ed Parcaut, but everybody spells it wrong. So,
yep. And yeah, I mean, just to clarify, so your last name is Parcaut for anybody listening. So Parcaut. Thanks so much, Ed, for coming on and sharing. We really appreciate it. And best of luck to you as you're working with buyers, and definitely think about how you can build wealth for you people considering buying, and pick up Ed's book.
Thank you so much. Appreciate having me here.
Have you ever heard the phrase, you're the average of the top 5 people that you hang around? Well, real estate agents, I'm excited to increase your 5 with you. We're launching the Real Freedom Investor Agent Tribe to help you get educated and connect with others to build your real estate investing journey, and also to help you along the way as you're working with real estate investors. So come check it out on our website, realfreedom.com. Go to the store. We have a membership, we have a mastermind group, and private coaching to help you stay accountable to your real estate investing goals and to make sure that you connect with like-minded people to accelerate your progress and to cheer you on along the way. Check it out, realfreedom.com. Click on the store.